Hello friends, welcome to my channel PPT Hub. In this channel you will find study materials, PowerPoint presentations, video lectures, useful links and many more. So please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon to get notification. Today in this channel I am gonna talk about the Telltale Heart, which is written by Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is American short story writer, poet, critic, editor who is famous for his cultivation of the mystery and the macabre. In this story, the narrator opens the story by addressing the reader and claiming that he is nervous but not mad. He says that he is going to tell a story in which he will defend his sanity yet confess to having killed an old man. Ryder had fear of the man's pale blue eye. He called it the vulture eye. Poe's economic style and the pointed language thus contribute to the narrative content, and perhaps this association of form and content truly exemplifies paranoia. So let's begin the story. True, nervous, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroy, not dull them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in the hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my mind, but once convinced it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none, love the old man. He had never wronged me, he had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a flame over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by the degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madman know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what causation, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night about midnight I turned the latch of his door and opened it so gently, and then when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you should have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the latrine casually and so cautiously, for hinges cracked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye, and this I did for 7 long nights. Every night just at midnight, but I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So, you see, he would have been a very profound old man. Indeed, to suspect that every night just at 12 I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the eighth night I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watchman's hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own parts of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feeling of shame to think that there I was opening the door little by little and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chucked at the idea and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly and if started. Now you may think that I drew back, but no, his room was as black as a page with the thick darkness, for the shutters were closed, fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. I had my head in and was about to open the latrine when my thumb slipped upon the thin fastening and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who is there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of the mortal terror. I was not groan of pain or grief. Oh no, it was the low stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when the hour change with awe. I know this sound well many a night, just as the midnight when all the world slept, it was felt up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I checked it hurt. I know that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had run in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It's nothing but the wind in the chimney, it is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single creep." Yes, he was very trying to comfort himself with those suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain, because death in approaching him had stopped with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, he felt the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the latrine. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with the perfect all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled very marrow in my bones, but I could see nothing else of the old man, face, or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct precisely upon the damn spot. And now have I not told you that what you mistake for the madness is over acuteness of the senses? Now I say there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound such as watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of the drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I had the latrine motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the prey upon the eye. Meantime the hellish tattoo of the herd increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instinct. The old man terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by neighbors. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked upon once only. In an instinct I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled kindly and found the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beats on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body the night when, and I worked hastily but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and arms and legs. I then took up three planks from the floorings of the chamber and deposit all between the scantling. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too worried for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end to these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark at midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now be fear? There entered three men who introduced themselves with a perfect Savary and officers of police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and the officers had been departed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear. I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek I was my own in the dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasure secure and disturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigue, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect dream, placed my own seat upon the very support beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied my manner had convinced them I was singularly at ease, they said, and while I answered cheerfully, they chatted of the familiar things but heard long. I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached and Francis a ringing in my ear, but still they said and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct, it continued and became very distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feelings, but it continued and gained definitiveness until at length I found that the noise was no within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heathen voice. Yet this sound increased, and what could I do? It was low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as watch makes when the enveloped in the curtain. I gasped for the breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about the trifles and in a high key and with a violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with the heavy strides, as if excited to fury by observations of men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and crowded it upon the boards, and the noise arose over and continually increased. I grew louder, louder, and louder, and still the man chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible? They heard not. Almighty God, no, no. They heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die or now again. Louder, louder it goes. Villains, I shriek. Dissemble no more. I admitted the dead, tear up the planks. Here, here, it is beating of his hideous heart. So that's the end of the story. Now, at the last, I told you about the theme of the story. The theme of the story is the fragility of the sanity, guilt versus innocence, and unrelenting passage of time. The narrator claims to be innocent and justified in his actions. The narrator's guilt manifests in the sound of a dead man's beating heart. It emphasizes the narrator's obsession with the time and its effect on his psyche. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. You can also find the PPT file in the description box.